Hey all, this is Pickleball on call, back for another consult. These are 11SIX24's Ultre and Vapor Power 2. Two high-end paddles known for their firepower, elite spin generation, and durable grit. At $200 after code, the Power 2s are 11SIX24's current flagship paddles. But with so many different options out there, how exactly do these paddles distinguish themselves? Let's take a look at the data and see just how well they stack up. The 11SIX24 Power 2 series utilizes a relatively simple core architecture. In the center, we have a full floating MPP core, and on its perimeter, an EVA foam band. On the surface, durable and abrasive materials are infused into the epoxy to create what they've termed hex grit. At the time of making this video, the Power 2 is available in 4 shapes: the Pegasus wide body, the Vapor hybrid with an arrow top, the Hirachi X elongated with an arrow top, and their newest addition, the Ultre, which they advertise as a flat top hybrid. Only the Ultra and Vapor shapes were tested as part of this review. Out of the box, my Ultra Power 2 measured 7.75 ounces static, with a swing weight of 110.7, a twist weight of 6.57, and a balance point of 23.6 centimeters. My Vapor Power 2 measured 7.84 ounces static, with a swing weight of 111.5, a twist weight of 6.64, and a balance point of 23.7 centimeters. All of these measurements fall exactly in line with what 11SIX24 advertises. Something that I want you to pay attention to are the dimensions of each paddle. The Vapor represents a more traditional hybrid shape, measuring 16.25 inches long and 7.75 inches wide, with an arrow top and a flared face. On the other hand, the Ultra takes a slightly different approach to the hybrid shape. It's slightly longer and narrower, measuring 16.35 inches long and 7.65 inches wide, and it utilizes a flat top with a uniform face. In addition to the difference in dimensions, the Ultra does seem to have slightly less of a taper near the throat. Now, these changes don't seem like much when it comes to reach, but there are definitely some differences in how they perform. When I initially played with these paddles, I felt as if neither the Ultra nor Vapor really felt that good to play with stock. This was a little unusual for me because both of them came with good swing weights and twist weights. However, the response felt a little odd and I wanted a little more out of the sweet spot, but I'll get into that later. I set up both of my paddles the same exact way. 3-gram pickle clips near the top corners, 2-gram pickle clips on the bottom corners, 2 layers of overgrip, and a 10-gram coin on the butt cap. With these modifications, it felt as if these paddles just sprung to life, with major improvements in consistency, responsiveness, feel, and sweet spot. This setup brought the swing weight of my Ultra from 110.7 to 117.8, the twist weight from 6.57 all the way up to 7.4, and the balance point from 23.6 centimeters down to 23.1 centimeters. The final stats on my Vapor Power 2 were almost identical, so I'm not going to list them here. Firepower metrics were standardized using 3 reference paddles that were tested side by side with the Ultra and Vapor Power 2. The numbers that you see up on the screen are an average for these two shapes, as there really was a negligible difference in how they performed. Power is defined as ball speed off of a full swing. I recorded an average serve speed of 57 miles per hour, which translates to a power rating of 8.5 out of 10 on my scale. Pop, defined as ball speed off of a shorter stroke, such as with a flick or a punch volley, averaged 40.0 miles per hour, which translates to a dynamic pop rating of 8.5 out of 10 on my scale. Static pop is defined as ball speed after contact with a stationary paddle, such as with a block or a reset. I use my in-game impressions as a proxy for the paddle's PP core. As you would expect, the Ultra and Vapor Power 2 both struggle with taking pace off of the ball. Blocks and resets off of aggressive shots were somewhat reasonable, but I definitely noticed more rebound than I would have expected for this paddle's playability. More on that later. Nevertheless, I would give static pop a rating of 8.5 out of 10. Therefore, the Ultra and Vapor Power 2 both receive an overall firepower rating of 8.5 out of 10, which places them in the middle of the power category. Spin was measured using slow motion footage off of heavy top spin serves. 11SIX24's aggressive hex grit surface generated an average top end spin reading of 2,518 RPM, which makes it the current leader in my database. This translates to elite levels of spin on my scale. In addition to spin generation, I tested the surface durability of my Vapor Power 2's hex grit. After 40 hours of playtime, my Vapor Power 2 was still averaging a top-end spin reading of 2,509 RPM, which equates to less than 20 RPM of spin loss. This change in spin is likely within the margin of error for testing, which means that realistically I could argue that nothing's really changed. Control is loosely defined as how well a paddle allows you to place your shots where you intended on placing them. I calculate control by taking a weighted average of a paddle's firepower, forgiveness, and playability, while factoring in my in-game impressions. As always, this is a very subjective and relative rating, and your impressions may vary depending on your skill level, style of play, and preference in paddles. It's not a one-size-fits-all approach, and everyone has their own take on what determines a paddle's control, but I will make a video on that later. So for me personally, taking its high pop, moderately large sweet spot, and elite spin production into consideration, the Ultre and Vapor Power 2 both score a 3.5 out of 10 on my control scale. This falls in line with other paddles within its firepower class such as the Honolulu CR Series, Enhanced Turbos, Bread and Butter Loco, and Friday Aura Pro. Now, remember when I mentioned that the margin of error for these paddles was a little smaller than I had hoped for? When it comes to sweet spot, these two paddles were truly hit or miss for me. When I played with them stock, it felt as if the response off the face was predictably unpredictable. I'll pull up the heat map so you have a better understanding of what I mean. As usual, the green outline represents the paddle's optimal sweet spot, whereas the yellow outline represents the rest of the paddle's sweet spot. Noticeably, both of these paddles felt as if they had a significant drop-off in response towards the bottom third of the face. The top 2/3 of the face plays like a true power paddle, but the lower part plays with significantly less fervor. Now, I want to make perfectly clear that the sweet spot is not small. I would still consider it to be above average with all paddles in consideration, but it's just not as large as I would have hoped for a paddle that exists in today's meta of floating cores and all foam constructions. I also want to mention that the Ultra does trade off a little bit of its horizontal sweet spot, but makes up for it in vertical sweet spot, which is much needed in the Vapor shape. And for this reason alone, I prefer the Ultra a little more. However, at the end of the day, both of these paddles played nearly identically, and both of them needed a significant amount of weight before I really did enjoy playing with them. On the court, the Power 2 feels moderately stiff and hollow, yet at the same time, it felt a little muted and almost mushy. There was also a bit of an unpleasant tinny characteristic that I noticed as I hit closer to the bottom half of the paddle face, and while this is present in most paddles, I noticed it more with the Power 2s. Overall, some would describe these paddles as soft and pleasant, but to me, they just didn't have the same connected and responsive feel that I've come to enjoy out of most MPP and EPP paddles. However, I do understand that all paddles are unique to some degree, and that our experiences are subjective. And I know what some of you might be thinking. No, my paddles are not broken. I've play tested several other Power 2 paddles, included 2 that were disbonded, and all of the healthy paddles felt the same as mine do. I really did hope that they just needed a little bit of time to break in, and while they did open up a little bit over the course of the first 2 to 3 hours, the very slight added softness didn't really do it for me. Now, this might be something that works for you, but I found the change to be neither beneficial nor detrimental. At $200 after code, the 11SIX24 Ultra and Vapor Power 2 are solid picks if you're someone who wants good firepower, elite spin generation, tier 1 grit durability, and a bit more softness than what most paddles on the market offer nowadays. Overall control, while low, does fall in line with paddles within its firepower class. However, the larger horizontal sweet spot makes this paddle a better fit for players who tend to hit higher up on the paddle's face. For me personally, the unimpressive vertical sweet spot and the very slightly muted, mushy, and tinny feel that I get from the paddle leave quite a bit to be desired. Everything considered, I would personally give the 11SIX24 Ultra and Vapor Power 2 an overall rating of 7.0 out of 10. With a slight preference towards the Ultra shape. Before I wrap up the video, I want to once again emphasize that this is my personal rating. These are still very good paddles and an easy recommendation to a lot of you, but I personally just didn't vibe with them as much as I would have liked to have. Which brings up a really important point. Before buying a paddle, I would encourage each and every one of you to demo it or try it out, just to see if they're a good fit for you. Which honestly speaking is what you should be doing with every potential paddle purchase. So while these paddles are not going to make their way into my main rotation, I have complete confidence in the quality of 11SIX24's work, and I eagerly await what David has planned next. This concludes this review. Thank you guys again for being part of this community. Let me know what paddle you want me to review next, and as always, I'll see you guys in the next one.